Hello, book club friends. We are back for the next session of the one and only Ivan, and I'm going to dive right back in because I am very interested to see if Julia ends up figuring out what Ivan's painting, because we know that the word Ivan painted, in addition to his scenery that he painted, was home. And what he is meaning, what we can assume he's meaning, is he's asking Julia to help him get home and help get him and Ruby home to somewhere safe, whether that's in the wild or in a humane zoo. So we're going to see if she figures it out, because yesterday we read that she didn't understand what he meant, and we're hoping that he's going to be able to maybe put all those pieces together and show her so she could see it as a full picture, because he was showing it to her in just single pieces of paper and anyone would be confused. So let's see. Moving along, we're almost done. Pretty good. We are on page 204 if you are following along, called More Paintings. George calls out to Julia. He's done for the night. Grab your backpack, he says, and hurry, it's late. Gotta go, Ivan, Julia says. Julia doesn't understand. I have to find the right pieces. I dig through the pile. They're here somewhere. I know they are. I find one, another one, another one. I try to hold 4 of them up against the glass. Bob, I say, help me, hurry. Bob grabs paintings with his teeth and drags them to me. One by one, I shove the pictures through the window crack. They crumble and tear. There are too many pieces. My puzzle is too big. Careful, Ivan, Julia says. Those might be worth millions someday. You never know. She arranges the paintings into a neat stack. I suppose Mac's going to want to sell these in the gift shop. She still doesn't understand. I shove more out the hole and more in all of them, one after another. So Ivan's been painting, has he? George says as he puts on his coat. A lot, says Julia with a laugh. A whole lot. You're not taking all of those home with you, are you? George asks. I mean, no offense to Ivan, but they're just blobs. A little rude of George. Julia thumbs through the towering stacks of paintings. They may not be blobs to Ivan. Let's leave those by the office, George suggests. Mac will want to try to sell them. Although, why anyone would pay $40 for a finger painting a 2-year-old could do, I don't know. I like Ivan's work, Julia says. He puts his feelings into them. He puts his hair into them, George says. Julia waves goodbye. Night, Ivan. Night, Bob. I press my nose against the glass and watch her walk away. All my work, all my paintings wasted. I look at Ruby, sleeping soundly, and suddenly I know she'll never leave the Big Top Mall. She'll be here forever, just like Stella. I can't let Ruby be another one and only. Let's take a second. Do you think that Julia's going to drop them off, like her dad said? Or do you think that she's going to take them home and maybe figure it out later? I know what I think is going to happen, but I'm not going to share it with you because I have I know what happens, so I think I know what she's going to do, but I don't know for sure. Let's see. Chest beating. Often when visitors come to see me, they beat their hands against their puny chests, pretending to be me. They pound away, soundless at the wet wings of a new butterfly. The chest beating of a mad gorilla is not something you ever want to hear, not even if you're wearing earplugs, not even if you're 3 miles away wearing earplugs. A real chest beating sends the whole jungle running, as if the sky has broken up, as if men with guns are near. Angry. Thump. The sound, my sound, echoes through the mall. George and Julia spin around. Julia drops her backpack. George drops his keys. The pile of pictures go flying. Thump, thump, thump. I bounce off the walls. I screech and bellow. I beat and beat and beat my chest. Bob hides under knot tag, his paws over his ears. I'm angry at last. I have someone to protect. So we know now that Ivan used that gorilla chest banging to notify Julia and her dad, like, you cannot leave those pictures with Mac. I'm trying to show you something. And it was so loud and so angry that Julia and George stopped right where they were. And maybe, just maybe, they're going to listen. Puzzle pieces. After a long while, I grow quiet. I sit. It's hard work being angry. Julia looks at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. I'm panting. I'm a little out of shape. What the heck was that? George demands. Something's really wrong, Julia says. I've never seen Ivan act this way. He seems to be calming down, thank goodness, George says. Julia shakes her head. He's still upset, Dad. Look at his eyes. My pictures are scattered all over the floor like huge autumn leaves. What a mess, George says, sighing. Wish I hadn't bothered sweeping tonight. Do you think Ivan's okay? Julia asks. Probably just a temper tantrum, George says. He reaches under his chair to retrieve a broom and red picture. Can't say I blame the guy stuck in this tiny cage all these years. There's all of his pictures dropped onto the ground. Julia starts to answer, but then she freezes. She cocks her head. She stares at her feet where my pictures lay in disarray. Dad, she whispers, come see this. I'm sure he's another Rembrandt, which is a famous painter. George says, let's pick these up and get going, Julia. I'm exhausted. Dad, she says again, seriously, look at this. George follows her gaze. I see blobs, many, many blobs, along with an occasional swirl. Please, can we go home now? That's an H, Dad. Julia kneels down, straightening one picture, then another. That's an H. And here, she grabs more pictures. Put this one here. And I don't know, maybe that one. You have an E. George rubs his eyes. I hold my breath. Julia is running now. She picks up one picture, sets down another. It's like a puzzle, Dad. This is something. It's a word, maybe words, and a picture of something, a giant picture. Jules, George says, this is crazy. But he's looking at the floor too, wandering from picture to picture and scratching his head. H, Julia says. Julia chews her lower lip. H-E-O, and that looks a lot like an I. H-E-O-I. George writes in the air with his fingers. I-E-O-H. They're trying to figure out what he's trying to spell. Not the letter, an actual I, and that's a foot, or maybe a tree and a trunk. Dad, I think that's a trunk. Julia runs to the window. Ivan, what did you make? I stare back. I cross my arms. This is taking much longer than I thought it would. Humans, sometimes. They make chimps look smart. We'll read one more page. Finally, Julie and George take the pictures to the ring, where there's room to see them all. An hour passes as they try to assemble my puzzle. Julie is awake now. Ruby's awake now, and she and Bob and I watch. Ivan, Ruby says, is that a picture of me? Yes, I say proudly. Where am I supposed to be? That's a zoo, Ruby. See the walls and the grass and the people looking at you? Ruby squints. Who are all those other elephants? You haven't met them, I say. Yet. It's a very nice zoo, Ruby says with an approving nod. Bob nudges me with a cold nose. It is indeed. In the ring, Julia pumps her fist in the air. Yes, she cries. I told you, Dad. There it is. Home. H-O-M-E. George gazes at the letters. He spins around to look at me. Maybe it's just a coincidence, Jules. You know, a once in a trillion kind of thing. Like that old saying about a chimp and the typewriter. Give him long enough and he'll write a novel. I make a grumbling noise as if a chimp could write a letter, let alone a book. Then how do you explain the rest of it, Julia demands. The picture of Ruby in a zoo. How do you know it's a zoo, George asks. See the circle on the gate? There's a red giraffe in it. George squints and tilts his head. Are you sure that's a giraffe? I was thinking more along the lines of a deformed cat. It's the logo for the zoo, Dad. It's on all their signs. Explain that. George gives her a helpless smile. I can't begin to. I'm just saying there has to be a logical explanation. Look how big this is. Julia puts the last pieces of Ruby's right ear into place. It's huge. It's definitely large, George agrees. Julia watches me. She chews on her thumbnail. I see the question in her eyes. She turns back to the painting and stares at them, truly looking. A slow smile dawns on Julia's face. Dad, I have an idea. A big idea. Julia races around the edge of my paintings, her arms spread wide. Billboard big. I'm not following you. I think this is meant to be a billboard. That's what Ivan wants. George crosses his arms over his chest. What Ivan wants, he repeats slowly. And you know this because you two have been chatting? Because I'm an artist, and he's an artist. Uh-huh, says George. Julia clasps their hands together. Come on, Dad, I'm begging you. George shakes his head. No, I'm not doing this. No billboard, no way. I'll get the ladder, Julia says. You get the glue. I know it's dark out, the billboard's lit. Mac will fire me, Jules. Julia considers. But think of the publicity, Dad. Everybody would know about Ruby. You want me to put up a sign that shows Ruby in a zoo with the word home on it in gigantic letters? George gestures towards my pictures. A sign, incidentally, that just happens to be made by a gorilla. Exactly. And you want me to do it without Mac's permission, George asks. Exactly. No, George says. No way. Julia goes to the edge of the ring, careful not to step on any of my paintings. She picks up Mac's classic. She walks back and hands it to her father. George runs his finger along the blade. She's just a baby, Dad. Don't you want to help her? But how would it help, Jules? Even if lots of people see Ivan's sign, it doesn't mean anything's going to change. I'm not exactly sure yet, Julia shakes her head. Maybe people will see the sign and they'll know this isn't where Ruby belongs. Maybe they'll want to help too. George sighs. He looks at Ruby. She waves her trunk. It's a matter of principle, Dad. Principal. She spelled that wrong. L-E, Dad cracks. Dad, Julia says softly, what if Ruby ends up like Stella? George looks at me, at Ruby, at Julia. He drops the claw stick. The ladder, he says quietly, is in the storage locker. 2:20, we are ending there on a cliffhanger because something is going to happen next. Are you excited? How do you feel? I'm so happy that Julia figured out what he meant. And even I didn't know that I was trying to make a billboard, but she knew what he meant. She made a connection with this animal, and she is going to do everything that she can to protect Ruby, Ivan, and everyone else at this big top mall. And I'm so worried that her dad wasn't going to help, but I think that he is. What do you think Mac is going to think or say, or how is he going to respond? If you're in my class, make sure to fill out my Google form so I can see what you're thinking. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel to see when new videos are uploaded. And you can follow me at Miss Pugz with a Z on Instagram to follow along with what's going on in our online classroom and our in real life classroom. I'll see you tomorrow.